Yeah. Yeah. Spider-Man. We're going to talk about Spider-Man, and we're getting excited. Joe and I made a song.
Hey, wow.
Yeah, that's Joe's star.
Hey, wow.
Spider-Man, Spencer can. Billy's here to talk the man.
Well done, though. That was like a solid
Good riff.
Thanks.
first two lines. Killed it.
Thank you. And then it just got away from me.
It's just a confidence thing. You'll
yeah.
get there.
Okay.
Yeah.
I have trouble. Me and Stephen King have trouble with endings.
That's fair.
So
That's fair.
I feel like I'm good company in that regard. Let's talk about this, though. Spider-Man Far From Home trailer. The release date is 7/5/19, ladies and gentlemen, so you're going to have to wait a little bit, but we got a taste right here. We've got questions. We saw Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. We saw our favorites. We got some NJ. We got some Ned, friend of the family and the channel. Tony Ravioli was present and accounted for. I know. He likes ravioli.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah.
He thinks it's
As
funny.
a name or a food stuff?
I think both.
Maybe.
I really think both.
I think
yeah.
we called him that once. And
We
then
did, and he
so
liked
much
it.
that
Yeah.
He kept it.
He kind of he stuck with Tony Ravioli.
I mean,
Or is it like we accidentally bullied him and he's too scared to not say that he...
Probably.
Is that ironic
The
given his
latter.
character?
Maybe.
Are we accidental bullies?
Are we Flashes?
Oh,
Maybe we're the
shoot.
Flash.
Are we?
Are we his Flash?
But not the good one.
No.
No, the mean one.
Who
Well,
played?
well,
Who?
now I'm
It always
upset.
blows my mind. Who is Flash Thompson in the first Spider-Man?
Oh, it's like a really famous guy, right?
Yeah.
Joe Manganiello.
Joe Manganiello.
Joe Man.
What? Yeah.
It's Joe
Joe
Manganiello?
Manganiello.
Yeah. Joe
Is Flash Thompson in
Manganiello is Flash Thompson in
What?
the first Spider-Man.
Yeah.
You know what it is? You need a you need
not.
you need
Yeah,
a
it is.
you need a last name you can riff with.
Could we get a fact check, Ryan?
Yeah,
Okay,
fact check that
thank you.
business. Joe's doing it on his phone. He's going to be.
Yeah,
Let's see who
this
wins.
fact check doesn't work until I see it with my own eyes.
For those of us that are just, joining us and getting to know this show, this is us. Welcome to it. It's not going to get much better than this, but we are going to talk about some of the
not
things.
That is Joe Manganiello.
Yeah. Joe Manganiello and Tony Ravioli
When he was a boy Jello.
are both playing
Joe
Flash
Boy Jello.
Thompson. In this trailer.
Yes, in this trailer.
We did see Mysterio and noted that there were a couple of Easter eggs present and accounted for. Billy the Business. Let's talk through dumb helmets and elementals and more.
Yeah. First of all, there's a trend going on in comic book movies right now. I think it started with Aquaman, but the trend of letting villains have their big dumb helmets that otherwise maybe would have been like MCU-ified turned into like a black leather costume with no mask. It's like Black Manta, huge dumb helmet. Mysterio, I was like, okay, yeah, you can't hide the pretty face of a Gyllenhaal. And then
You don't wanna do
boom,
that.
Boom, there it is.
big dumb helmet.
Big hug.
I
Yeah.
was so happy. Guys, I want all the big dumb helmets because comic books has no shortage of big dumb helmets.
Yep.
And I think we've finally gotten to the point where it's like, just do it, man. Just
Just do it.
it doesn't even matter if it doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
I think Black Manta, they tried to be like, okay, well, it has to be big to fit this laser. You don't need to take...
You don't have
you don't need
you
a
have to
scene.
reason with me.
Yeah, you don't need a scene to tell me why. Just he has a
give-
fishbowl. It's amazing.
Just
I
give
love
Billy his
it.
big dumb helmet.
Mysterio is my all-time favorite.
Very Doctor Strange.
Yeah, very Doctor
Little Doctor Strange, little
esque.
Iron Man, little Thor, and
Yeah.
if they are keeping his background as like a special effects
Effects
guy
wizard,
who's
yeah.
basically just like a huge fanboy of these arts of superheroes, that he would kind of build a composite costume out of the MCU.
Yeah, which
That's why I
is
love it.
great, and
Yeah.
I think that it gives them an opportunity. I always think that there's a delicate line with getting too meta and too self-reflexive, because I think it can be a harbinger of, oh, this is going to be like over soon, because when something becomes so self-reflexive that it's only commenting on itself and is no longer telling a story, that to me is the turning point. That's when it's not the end, but it's definitely like the road sign. Like
it's a sign the audience knows the rules and can make jokes about the rules instead
Yeah.
of being invested in the story.
which there's only so far to go from there.
Yeah.
So that's definitely the road sign that's like, oh, MCU and, highway end in X miles, X. I'm not saying it's the, okay.
Well, what are
Before
you saying from
at
this
me-
trailer that was too meta?
No, nothing. I'm only saying in the sense that if we are, well, not too meta. I'm not saying it's too meta. I'm just saying that is a very meta statement, that he is this combination of these other characters.
Well, to me, the meta point is that Gyllenhaal wanted to be Spider-Man after Tobey Maguire and didn't get the part. So and now he's jealous of Spider-Man.
Yeah.
I imagine in this upcoming feature.
Sure, but that's I think an okay level of meta. That's like a deep, like, you know that, and a lot of audiences won't know that. But the point where on screen they're commenting about the tropes, to me, is the point when things are getting. Now I'm going to get in so much trouble. I'm just going to switch gears and talk about Easter eggs soon. I'm not saying it's the end. I'm saying that in any given genre, that can be the point when you know that they're running out of runway. I should just walk it back.
I don't think it's that controversial of a statement, because you're not saying that they've done that yet. But yeah, when they're so self-referential, if they do become self-referential and like acknowledging how stupid they've become at some future date, then it's probably time to wrap it up.
That'll be what happens when they drop Deadpool in.
Yeah.
And it'll probably be bad. That
You
probably
think
won't
so?
be. I don't know if that's a good mix.
They'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. They're fine. They're much better at this than we are.
Yeah, Kevin Feige's a genius. That's all I'll say. Plus, I also like DC and X-Men. I'm just gonna move on.
Star Wars is both great and terrible, depending on
who I need to please.
Whatever you think, I agree with it.
Big dumb helmets.
Big dumb helmets. Elementals potential. And we don't know where Mysterio is in terms of like his arc, good or bad. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like, and people have been talking about this for months, that the villains initially could be the Elementals, which were like kind of almost like Infinity Stone-esque. They they're ancient in the comics. They're like ancient things that like embody the basic elements: Hydron, water; Magnum, earth; Hellfire, fire; and Zephyr, wind. Although, who knows? This
Captain Planet, when they put their rings together.
This could also be Hydro Man. That could be Sandman. I mean, who knows? But I think it matches up with the rumors that initially they're there to be fighting the Elementals, which is cool. I think that's like, I like the going a little bit into the deep lore, but obviously with Mysterio there, I don't think it's going to turn out too well for.
My initial thought was the Elementals are fake, and he's trying to play it at being a hero while possibly robbing things.
Yeah. I think you guys are burying the biggest story of this trailer.
His bowl cut?
Spider-Man's alive!
Okay.
Oh,
Spider-Man!
Which
He's
is
back!
And it's funny because it's not until bullet point 3 on our list where I say, we're Avengers.
We're Avengers.
We're Avengers. So let's talk about this. The timeline is this ostensibly would take place. I think this is probably led to tricky conversations. We were talking about this, speaking of meta, between the two studios. That will be one studio. Sony. The two studios in the sense that Sony and Marvel, because it totally blows their Spider-Man wad for Endgame.
Yeah.
This trailer. You know?
I imagine that phone call. Like, could you not put Spider-Man in the trailer for your only
Spider-Man
movie you have left?
I think the conversation wasn't, can you not put Spider-Man in it? It was probably, can you delay the release of this film?
Exactly.
So that it doesn't become an issue for Endgame. And Sony was probably like, nah.
We'll consider that. And we've considered it. No.
But it is tricky because that was one of the most emotionally effective moments, I thought, in Infinity War. And it is completely blown now. Obviously, Spider-Man's there, but pointedly, Happy is saying, you're all alone. So the question is, where Tony? Where Avenger? Where Avenger?
I thought they just meant all alone in Europe, but I guess you're right. That's probably what he meant.
I mean, he said it so solemnly that it made me think like Tony. I mean, obviously, I don't think Happy has any connection to like the, where's Falcon? Let's get him. But I think it's speaking only of Tony. It made it sound like Tony's just not around anymore, which could be either A, people looking too much into it, B, a red herring, or C, Iron Man's not going to make it out of Endgame.
Or a sad take they used specifically for the trailer, and that was the compromise between the studios. Was what if we did? We red herringed, and there's just one take where it's like, you're all alone because they're all gone to shawarma. Is the next scene to Shawarma Fest.
I want to go to Shawarma Fest bad.
Right. I'm glad Happy's there. I thought adding Nick Fury and what's her face from How I Met Your Mother as supporting. Maria Hill. Thank you. I always used to really like Maria Hill, and then Maria Hill just got put in a corner, Dirty Dancing style, to the point that I forgot her name.
She got iced.
Yeah, she got very iced. Biggest issue I have with this trailer, and I hate to bring the energy down because I know we're excited about Big Dumb Helmet. I know the internet is very horny for Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio, and those are all really good things. Aunt May deserves better than Happy Hogan. That really bothered me.
How dare you?
She's like a Tony. She gets a Tony or a T'Challa.
But there is kind of a runner of Aunt May not really realizing how thirsty guys are around her, like with that waiter and stuff like that. She's just like, oh, people just give me things all the time.
That's true.
Joe, how dare you?
And can I tell you something?
How dare you take that away from Jon Favreau? He's a fucking catch, Joe Starr. How dare you say that he's
executive
not
assistant
good enough
to Tony
for
Stark,
her?
head of security.
Get out of this room right now.
Yeah.
Happy is so loyal. He's so nice. He's charming. He's clearly good with kids. You're terrible,
So's
Joe
Black
Starr.
Panther.
You're so shallow.
He's
You're
like
so shallow.
a beefy Smithers, man. He's a catch.
He's beefy.
Okay, he's not beefy Smithers. Okay. I'm going to correct everybody here. Are you prepared? I'm going to correct us. First of all, you're right about that runner, and I do think that she is in the beautiful bubble, the handsome bubble, and there are people that are in that. Like, oh, don't you just walk into any given organization and get offered a job? Like, no, you do. But I don't even think it's that she doesn't know she can do better. I think Happy is a much more solid choice. If you think about Tony's lifestyle alone,
I'm just saying, I think they're Kevin
just getting
James and Marissa
blown up
Tomei.
around him. He was a player.
He's the rich stepdad that like sends you a Ferrari every 18 years to say, "I still remember you exist."
Also, frankly, he's got a commitment with Pepper. If you,
That's fine. If you guys want a Kevin James, Marissa Tomei, that's fine. That's fine. That's a decision on these three.
From Iron Man 3, we know he's very sensitive. He not only is protective, but he also likes Downton Abbey, which means that
they could watch Downton together.
Yeah,
Are you
he's a
saying
great
that
choice.
a couple should be based only on relative attractiveness?
Yeah,
I'm saying in the modern media landscape where we Kevin James actresses one after another, I think that they can do better than Flash Thompson or whatever.
Wow.
JTE, oh my God, what do you want?
Look at the check. Crony. Thank you, JT. Great Easter egg.
Thank you, JT.
We got it.
He's pointing out that word almost spells horny if you couldn't hear him.
You need a raise, buddy.
What are you on today?
It's like really stressing me out. Like every 4 sentences, JTE's talking.
Yeah, I love it. I think we should give him a mic and a cam.
Yeah, well, we wanted to do that. And
How many
You just want
mics?
to watch him be on his phone the entire time?
Yes, that's why I wanted
A live
it.
cam of him not ending the show.
So this is what I wanted. I wanted to have a cam on JTE that I saw and controlled, so
nice.
I could just cut to
him.
him when he's not paying attention to us.
What if instead of
and he's just on his phone?
What if instead of a camera, you could just jolt him?
Oh, like a shock button.
Well,
yeah.
we should do
Just
both.
a
If
little
we're
shock
gonna
button.
jolt him,
Well, then,
we should
yeah,
put
that
it
should
on
be
a
on camera. That
right? Like,
Yeah.
I honestly think we should just add more people to the room that aren't at this table, and they all get a cam and a mic.
Yeah.
At
give 'em all
least
cam.
10
at
or
least
11.
10 or 11.
Everyone
yeah.
gets a cam.
Yeah.
I would like to talk more about this film.
I think that's surprising.
Yeah,
and
I
thank
know.
you for bringing us back on track.
My favorite part of Homecoming was the high school stuff and the it was like a good teen coming of age kind of high school comedy.
yeah.
And this one, I'm very excited for the potential of just like a Euro trip that
Yeah.
just
Yeah,
happens
yeah,
to have
yeah.
Spider-Man in it.
Yeah.
I hope I do love Ned, but I hope he stays tranquilized and he's replaced with like a German party boy named Roger.
Yeah.
And like some guy, and they like go all around Venice like trying to buy ecstasy from a guy in capri pants.
Yeah.
And just go on, like fun gallivanting Euro adventures.
I'm gonna say that Roger would have ecstasy. If we're being,
Oh, Roger
yeah,
the party boy,
yeah.
but he ran out.
He ran out.
Yeah.
Okay, no, that's
They got-
fair. That's fair. So the ecstasy is the MacGuffin.
Yeah.
We have to go find Johan.
They have to find Johan.
Johan's got the X. Johan's definitely got the X.
It was in his other capri pants.
And then Johan, okay, here you go, just to mirror Homecoming, because Homecoming's a really great movie. They finally find Johan, and the door opens, and it's Mysterio. And he's like, hey, guys, you here for ecstasy? And they have the same Keaton, porch
thing,
moment where Peter's like,
yes.
oh, and he's real nervous getting
Yeah.
ecstasy, and everyone's like, are you a cop? Yeah. I like
Yeah.
it.
Speaking of Homecoming, I wonder how, because we know Keaton's in this. I wonder where he factors into all of this.
That's a good and much more on track thought.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing it up. I don't know. I want to.
I really like Johan,
I want to return to.
He is Johan. The
I like-
whole time he pulls a mask off and it's Michael Keaton. Got you.
I think he's Roger.
Yeah.
I think he's embedded deep in the story.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. It's just a little Mission Impossible twist. Back to the actual things at hand. Do we think they are going to address Endgame at all? Do we care? Is it more important that it is, to your point, a self-contained story?
I mean,
'Cause
of
I
course
think Homecoming-
they'll address it because it's in universe. They're mentioning Thor and stuff like that, and Happy Hogan. So yeah, of course they have to deal with the aftermath, but the aftermath will have a nice, pretty bow on it by the end of Endgame.
Yeah.
So this is just like, okay, this is the nice Ant-Man and the Wasp. Like, what's the like fun, not lightweight but less depressing sequel? to
Here's the
come
thing, though. I
on the
feel
tails of
like
it.
everyone's going to have their memory wiped because you can't not address the fact that Peter would be like, I remember dying, and it was the most traumatic thing ever, and I can't live a normal
I mean,
life.
unless it happens in minute 15 of Endgame, and then you have 3 more hours of him
Just
doing
like
that.
dealing
Yeah.
with there's PTSD.
They
of
just get to that.
dying.
I mean, I feel like that'll be the first half of the next movie.
Or maybe that's why that's a motivating factor for, aside from just the fact that he is a teenager and they should stop making teenagers work like this in world-ending situations and let them be on their Euro trip. But
I got
it
a
may
comment
be,
about that too.
Okay, but it may be.
you are doing it. Taking
God
notes.
damn it! Like, you guys are fucking impossible. Flipping, frolicking.
Quiet, JTE.
I don't even remember what I'm gonna say. Forget it. Joe, go ahead.
Oh, I was. You mentioned you mentioned the militarization of Peter Parker. Stop trying to make this little kid the army.
Yes.
You're gonna step up, Peter Parker, and it's like he already saved the world and he saved an Avengers jet. He's like a child. What is their obsession with making Peter Parker a child soldier?
Yeah, that's what it was.
Yeah, just let the kid go hang out with Johan and Roger. Thank you, and Euro it up. Like, why is everyone just like, you kid? You're in the army now.
Time to have all the
Your army.
responsibility of the world on your shoulders.
And seemingly largely on his own as well. But yeah, I think whatever he experiences in Endgame might be one of the motivating factors for why he just wants to leave the suit at home and go be with his friends and not have to deal with a lot of trauma.
Yeah.
But trauma
And speaking
will
of
follow
suit, did I see a frame or two where Spider-Man briefly becomes Venom?
No, he had a noir suit on, but yeah.
I know. I'm clickbaiting, but he does have a couple new suits in this, which is pretty cool.
did.
Got little wings.
I don't think you can
and a black
in-show
suit.
clickbait.
Too late. You're either in or off this crazy
Damn
train
it,
at
we
this
should
point.
change the title.
Is Venom
Is Spider-Man Venom in new trailer?
No.
I don't think they'll address Endgame a whole lot. I'm hoping they don't really at all. Maybe a line. I think the MCU is to a point now where they need to start training the audience to not judge an MCU film based on the amount of information about other MCU things you get in it. Not to say that was the only weakness of, say, Ant-Man and the Wasp, which was fun but not like the best MCU movie. But I think a lot of people looked at that as like, what was even the point? Like, there was no Thanosing, there was no Avengering. It was just about the characters and the title of the movie and what's that all about. So I'm hoping now after Endgame, they pull back for at least a little bit. Like, I don't need a sudden cut to like Thor's new hammer. And for them to be like, Thor's new hammer will return in Spider-Man 3 for some reason. I'm really hoping they get back to sort of standalone stuff. As a comic book reader, it doesn't necessarily bother me that like this won't have a lot of Endgame connections, even with the scheduling issues, because as your big Marvel comic book events are unfolding, every other book still has to publish. And so, while Hawkeye's getting killed in reality war gone civil secret fight, number 4, where Hawkeye explodes, Matt Fraction's Hawkeye series is still running alongside it, where he just hangs out with a dog and fights the local mafia. So, like, you just got to do some head gymnastics and let them coexist.
Head gymnastics.
Important.
Important for comic book movies. Here's circling it back to what I walked back from before.
Your aura got cloudy for a second.
That was my hair, but also my aura.
It was
if
her
we're
aura.
honest. It was, yeah. No.
That was every reaction to me ever.
Meta can revitalize a genre in the case of something like Scream, right? Do you remember? But then it sort of revitalized the slasher film for a period of time with Scream, and I know what you did last summer and all of that. But then quickly killed it off about 5 years after that. So positives and detractors. Netflix raises its prices. Good and bad news for consumers. Good news for Netflix. So they have raised about $1 or $2, and it's going to roll out over the next couple of months. So if you have an $11 plan, it's going to go to $13, and $9 is going to go up, 8 to 9, 14 to 16, so on from there. You do the math. If you are a new member, which very few people are new members here, but in other parts of the world, that is still happening and they are still finding growth. You will start with the higher price point. And this is, of course, on the heels of the Disney streaming service is coming, the Warner Brothers streaming service is coming. There's now going to be an NBC Universal streaming service that was just announced the other day. We can talk about that a little bit.
So SNL and Friends reruns?
Well, let's talk about that
Okay.
and what they'll actually have. So Netflix stock price went up with this announcement because they've been doing so much deficit spending, as we know. They are $8 billion in debt as of last year. And is based on their own expectations. The streaming service announced in October that it planned to take on $2 billion in new debt. So they're, as we know this, and I know a lot of folks will leave these comments, they also make a lot each month. But they are deficit spending, especially in this competitive market. So I think that probably there was some confidence in the idea that they were going to raise their prices so to be generating more income at the same time to counter the deficit spending. So all that to say, looking at the landscape and all of these other services coming, what do you guys think? How will consumers react to this price hike? Because I think probably for now, I'm just going to speak anecdotally, I will not adjust. But over time, as more and more services come in, and depending on how much they cost, it just will get really cost prohibitive for people to say have $15 a month for 5 or 6 different services, plus whatever else is going on for them in terms of their entertainment needs. So it gets a little complicated.
What do you mean when you say you won't adjust, like you won't cancel?
I won't cancel
Okay.
it. Yeah. Just anecdotally. But if it comes to a point where there's going to start to be a debate for me financially, you know?
Yeah, I'm gonna be downgrading.
Fandom, you want to just go ahead and
hook us
expense
up.
that for me?
Yeah, give me an extra $2 a month, but I'm gonna scale it back from. I do the Ultra HD. What?
Go ahead.
What's up there?
Joe and I were having like conversations that we'll have in the office.
We'll talk for
later.
Spencer later. Sorry, Spencer.
I have the Ultra HD Netflix, and like not that much content is even available in that, and I'm feeling like a slowly boiled frog here. They keep inching the price up and up, so I'll be scaling it back with this announcement. I'll be
you will?
downgrading. Yeah,
To what plan?
whatever the
Normal
one is.
Yeah.
Yes, the 1080
Yeah.
one.
Not worth it.
Not
$16
worth it.
a month is a lot for something I don't say I watch less and less of it, but watch intermittently. Like when there's a show,
Yeah.
I'll watch a lot of it and then just absolutely nothing. Because my check-in thing is Hulu now.
It's a lot of money to
really?
spend purely on British Bake Off. I definitely understand downgrade, especially across the board. Actually, all of them with like the 4K Ultra HD. Like no one's really delivering on that price point with that kind of content. I do think it's going to be a matter of who's your third favorite and they're out. Like once everyone starts to actually like add their monthly streaming prices together, it's going to be a matter of like, well, who's last on the totem pole and they go first. Because right now with like Netflix on its own, they probably could have raised the price $1 or $2 and not told me, and it just direct deposits or auto withdrawals, and I probably wouldn't have noticed it because I'm bad at money.
But it's that month where you're feeling a little tight, and it's in that month that you go and you're like, what am I?
Yeah, and you're like,
spending
okay,
$16
Hulu.
a month.
Yeah, and
Wait
you're
a
like, okay,
minute.
Hulu, Disney, Prime, Netflix, NBC, and Warner Brothers, and whatever replaced the fancy movie streaming service. I don't remember what it was called.
It was
That's
called
probably the one that
Film-
goes for me.
It was called Filmstruck. Now it's just under the
Well,
criteria.
now it's struck from my budget because I can't afford it.
I have it. I signed up for it. It's like the new membership deal. It's like $80 for a year.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little pricey, but
Is it only locked in for a year? Or
yeah, and it's a little. I think it's only locked in for a year. I believe I have to read the fine print, but also it's a slightly pricey. But you also kind of get that extra kick of I'm doing something good for the world because they support film preservation.
Yeah.
Billy, how about you?
So, Joe, you brought up something earlier, and you said it as a joke, but
I get it. The happy thing really bothered you, and I'm sorry.
You said it as a joke, but it's actually something that I was trying to explain to our viewers last time we were talking about Hulu. You said NBC Universal, where they're just going to put old Friends and something else. It's like, well, no, that's actually the problem is that Friends is Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
It was on NBC.
That's right.
So
You're
there's
very
a
right.
lot of these like rights issues when you talk about Hulu. It's like, well, how come I can't have this and that? It's like, because take a movie like Titanic that Paramount releases in the States, but overseas it's all Universal because they co-financed. That's everywhere, especially in TV. So with NBC Universal's app, now they just announced this, I think, yesterday. They said that theirs is going to be probably more like how Hulu was at the beginning, where it's ad-supported streaming from their library. So now we're talking about like House. I know House left Netflix probably for something like this. And then they'll also have like a pay version if you want to get rid of the ads. But I think that's not going to fly anymore. If you don't have anything original to bring to the table to get me to subscribe to you, why would I pay anything to watch without commercials?
I mean, unless it's ad supported.
Well,
that's what I'm saying. But at that point, I'm not paying NBC anything.
right, and it's an interesting move on their part in the sense that if you think about CBS tried with CBS All Access, and even then, and they held back I think they held back Star Trek and a couple of other programs to try and force your hand to subscribe to CBS All Access. Well, I think that you have a model problem. We are used to watching CBS with ad-supported for free, and now you want me to pay for it too? F you a little bit. And so I think what NBC is maybe doing, NBC Universal, is saying we're going to set up a model that is like the networks, where you're used to it, where it's ad-supported. Versus trying to create a subscription service. But at the same time, you're right, you better have some new things to bring to the table there. Like all of your programming better be there, even for us to just tune into it, because you can't just count on your legacy program, which we would have to look into the licensing. And to Billy's point and to the point about Hulu that people have been talking about, the international licenses are so complicated, especially for these legacy shows, because Warner Brothers could have made the show. It could have aired on NBC, and then in the UK aired on like Channel 4, and they have those rights there. And then the rights are just split through international distribution. It all happens at like this event that happens in Cannes, doesn't matter, where those licenses are bought and distributed, But the point is, it gets really, really complicated in the world that we're in. And if Hulu really wants to be the one to make an international play, it has to break through that mold. But if NBC Universal and other studios are going to be fighting them on that, then I don't think they stand a chance. And everyone's just trying to figure out how to stay alive at this point, and it is basically the Hunger Games of zeros and ones.
It's also interesting that they would announce this, because don't they still have a stake in Hulu? Mm-hmm. But it makes it sound like they're not going to want to play ball with, or they don't like what Disney's going to be doing with it, or they see the writing on the wall and want to get their stuff out of there. Yeah, this whole thing's a mess. We've said it a million times, but it can't be any more clear that we're remaking the cable system. Hopefully this time, though, the good thing is you can choose. Yeah. You don't have to pay for Disney if you don't want it. You don't have to pay for any of these if you don't want them. It's just a matter of how it's all going to shake out.
But that's how cable started. When it was before, and it's still a little bit before it was in bundles, you could choose the cable network that you wanted to pay for.
See, I'm a youngin'. I remember it as there was just one cable, and
it had 500 channels.
And you got Disney Channel like once every 6 months in a free preview.
Netflix and Amazon have started to feel. I the other night clocked it, and we looked for something to watch for an hour and a half.
Wow.
And
It's a long time.
you spend a full hour.
You can't go
and
in without a
half.
plan, Rob.
You can't.
Yeah, you can't go grocery shopping hungry.
You just can't do it. Just scrolling. And at a certain point, it was like, Peter Rabbit, we are just going to watch Peter Rabbit. You know?
The most intense
Oh, man.
way to go into that movie.
Fine. Well, Peter Rabbit.
We will watch Peter Rabbit.
That sounds like a no-win scenario where you're like, fine, I'll Peter Rabbit you.
Yeah.
I'm not kidding, I'll do it.
I will do it right now. It was a very delightful film, by the way. So that was a good choice on our part. And then we watched Hitchhiker's Guide. That doesn't matter. The point that I'm making is that more and more, I feel like the consumer is the one who is going to be suffering for the next 2 years, just kind of wanting to keep pace with what. Honestly, I think there's going to be a desire to keep pace with what people are talking about. So whichever one has the most popular show in that moment, you're going to want to be a part of that. Mm-hmm. It's too much money. It's too complicated.
Yeah.
Fix.
I'm like genuinely worried about HBO
Business.
after post Game of Thrones. I feel like everybody's gonna cancel their HBO Now
Well,
if
what
they
else
got
do they
it.
have?
Exactly.
They have Last Week Tonight that I can watch on YouTube.
True
You can watch that on
Detective
YouTube.
season.
True
3.
Detective
Is
Yeah.
Westworld, is that them?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay. They still got that.
that's true.
That's the thing.
Well, that's why.
How many
there's-
years ago you have a huge show like Westworld and you'd be like, which one is that one on? Like now
yeah.
I'm just like, is that Amazon? Who? I can't remember anymore. But before it was like, oh, Sopranos, that's HBO. That's where you go for that. Now that's the problem too, is like this content is getting bigger than its format. So you're just like, you're talking about shows and they're huge things, but it's like, I don't remember where that comes from anymore,
Yeah.
you know?
But that's also why HBO has their 19 Game of Thrones spin-offs.
In development.
Yeah, we'll
development
see.
and-
See about that.
Here's directors and here's cast, and we'll see if they're stream fight worthy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe. I mean, look, HBO, and you couldn't have thought a couple of years ago that in terms of reputation, HBO couldn't be beat. You know, it was just the only place to go. And then now all of these other services are making a play to have. But Netflix, I thought, was making progress in that regard. But now it's just become Netflix soup. There's so much there.
Oh yeah. It's like a Payless or like a what are those stores where it kind of looks like it's already been ransacked and you're just kind of picking through
Ross
pieces.
Dress for
Like
Less?
a Ross Dress for Less. Thank you.
Shoe Carnival.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, you can find like a
Marshalls.
really good like underwear deal. It's like, oh, that's like Calvin Klein, like nice. But you're picking through like
$8.
old Christmas decorations and just like pillows that look like your grandma slept on them. So Netflix is kind of a slog now.
It is a little bit. It honestly is. And I think they're trying to figure
The most accurate thing.
It is.
It's like shopping at Ross.
Yeah, it's a lot like it. You can find some great gems.
Yeah, but you got to work for it now.
You really got to work. And then sometimes you just take a risk. Like on You,
Uh-huh. Right.
which is a really well done program, as it turns out. Yeah.
Uh-oh. JT, you okay?
He was trying to set up a camera for himself.
Quick breaking news. NBC is launching its own streaming service and maybe taking The Office away from Netflix.
So JT just chimed up with breaking news that NBC was launching its own streaming service that we've been talking about for 10 minutes. But this actually is interesting. He says that
But he saw it on his phone.
But they may be taking The Office away from
Yeah,
Netflix,
we saw
which
how,
would be significant.
We saw how
Thank
that
you, JT.
worked out with 30 Rock. There's like certain bedrock shows on Netflix that I feel like are just a warm blanket to people.
Yeah.
That, I mean, maybe it'll go away. It doesn't. I think Netflix has bigger fish to fry than trying to. I don't think they'll give them Friends money for The Office. Like nowhere even close.
How much was the Friends deal?
It was like 120
million.
Yeah.
Something like
mil for like a year.
Yeah.
It was insane because they paid like 80 million for 5 years the first go around.
When everyone sort of starts shoring up borders and with
Are they
stuff
gonna
like
build
Friends. Well, no, with like stuff like Friends, like eventually, no one's going to be sharing content.
No,
is
yeah.
what I'm saying.
Yeah,
They're going to build that wall.
God damn it!
man.
I saw it. It was there. It was there. I
Yeah.
saw it on your face. Guys, there's a crisis on our southern border.
We can't have friends on both sides. That's why I'll be there for you, America.
Bam, 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 womp, womp. My question was going to
Just gonna
be,
stare into the middle distance, pretend I'm not
how do
here.
you think that's going to affect? I mean, actor deals and stuff like that. You're gonna basically they're going to kill the idea of
complicated.
reruns, and they're gonna you know they're gonna kill those ideas. You know, obviously, I'm assuming that there are percentages from the Netflix Friends deal that go to the cast, that go to the creators.
Yeah.
There are.
But as everyone starts to shore up and build those beautiful freestanding metallic fence devices that are just going to solve a lot of problems.
But this is what we saw. This was the crux of the 2007 writer's strike, was that they weren't getting, they were getting, you know, fractions of pennies on like iTunes downloads. And this was before this was probably right when Netflix started getting the streaming game, maybe even like a year before it. So you could potentially be looking at real problems, because this is going to become the new status quo and they're going to have to bend. And at the moment, I don't think they are.
So what they do for Netflix currently on something like a Bright, for example, or one of their actual original programs, is they do a buyout.
Yeah,
so
they pay it all up front.
They pay it all up front, and then you have no right to residuals or anything else down the line. But the pre-existing contracts for all of these programs, which all of that was built in, and it does depreciate over time, but it's still there.
Right.
That's really complicated. Yeah. I don't know how that's going to work, but it's going to get very tricky, and a lot of lawyers are going to be accruing a lot of billable hours.
It's going to get messy for sure.
Yeah.
I would see another strike or two coming down the pipeline.
Yep.
Which is just in time for the recession. We know how well that worked out for Hollywood the last time. That's an inside pain joke. It didn't work out well at all. A lot of people were out of work because the writer's strike happened at the same time as the recession, and basically the town shut down.
But we got
And
Kid
all of the-
Nation from it.
Yeah.
Yes, we
and,
did.
And it was too bad because people were pissed off at the writers, right? Because
Yeah.
they were shutting down productions, which meant all of these people were out of work. But at the same time,
We got
you
some great
understood the
Transformers
writer's
movies.
perspective.
Yeah, it's almost as if you should pay writers fairly because they create all the things you like.
It's almost like you should pay everyone fairly.
Pay everyone fairly, yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that, what do you think?
Well, I do feel, you know, because I hope it doesn't come to strikes, but all these guilds are like fairly strong and influential
Yeah.
in Los Angeles, so they will not bend, and
Yeah.
they will have to pay up at some point. If you're spending $10 billion in debt, some of that can go to the creative talent that allows you to exist.
We'll see.
We'll see.
We'll see where that goes. But we certainly know that it won't be the corporate overlords who are suffering, because that's not the way the world works. Say something positive.
I got nothing. Everything's very bad.
Spencer?
We got free lunch coming today.
Oh,
it is lunch day.
It's Lunch Tuesday.
Lunch Tuesday.
So that's good for us. I get to eat today.
Yeah, yeah, we're eating.
And less optimistic. Billy?
Are we trying to get to story 3?
No,
Are
I'm
we
getting us
maneuvering
there.
our way there?
I'm
Okay.
getting us there. So, in very sad news for Hollywood, Carol Channing passed away. The nice part of this story is that she lived a very good, long life. She starred in 5,000 performances. Isn't that amazing?
Wow.
She is probably most well known for starring in Hello, Dolly on Broadway and elsewhere. She was 97 years old. Very, very rich career, especially on Broadway. Didn't necessarily always, she kind of had a larger than life quality that I think probably worked really well for the theater. Maybe was a different experience on the small screen. And Billy might have a little story about that.
Yeah, I mean, Carol Channing was, you know, besides just Broadway too, she, you know, a lot of like she was on TV a lot back, like, especially like when variety shows and whatnot were kind of the big thing.
With George Burns.
Right. She was a big personality. So when my Carol Channing kind of experiences, she is pure nightmare fuel.
We want to say that
she-
Carol Channing was an icon and very beloved, but this is fascinating.
It is, but I think if she were here, just from interviews and everything, I think she would get a kick out of this the most. Because in 1985, Irwin Allen did a 2-night, it was like 3 hours, adaptation of Alice in Wonderland, with Alice in Wonderland the first night and Through the Looking Glass the second night.
Ugh.
anyone who was anyone in the 80s, from like John Stamos all the way to like Sid Caesar, Sammy Davis Jr., Ringo Starr, Telly Savalas, like
So weird.
the strangest cast of characters ever put together. Anthony Newley, who was did all the music for Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. He was the Mad Hatter. Red Buttons, crazy cast list. They were all in this big, huge 3-hour event. And Carol Channing was in The Looking Glass, and she was the White Queen in Through the Looking Glass. And it was the most nightmare-fueled scene probably ever. She plays this crazy old woman, and I was telling Roth about it in the car. She's like, that sounds kind of weird. And then she came in, and I showed her the clip, and she's like, this is horrifying. And I said, this is the entire 3 hours.
Yeah, let's watch.
I pulled the clip
do it.
so you all could see it and feel my pain as a 5-year-old and never gotten over this.
I hope your finger's better now.
Better. Much better.
He's the goat.
Yeah.
Why the transformation? Does
No
it ever...
explanation. She shows up about 15, 20 minutes later, back as the queen again. No mention of the goat.
We do not speak of this.
We don't
Yeah, that's
speak.
amazing.
We don't speak of the goat, but she has a great song. Like it's the part where they're explaining how everything is backwards. She's like, "Yeah, we have great jam here. You can have jam tomorrow, and you could have it yesterday, but you could never have jam today." And they just go on for like 10 minutes about how like, "Yeah, you can have it tomorrow or yesterday, but you can never have it today."
I do remember that.
Yes, it's a song. Yeah.
I do. I don't remember that, but I do remember that song.
Doesn't that feel like a metaphor for how we think about our lives? Like we're always in the past and romanticizing it or thinking about the better future, but we're never having our jam today.
You can never have it now.
Spencer, Carol Channing memories?
You just like you said, the outsized personality. It's they don't make them like her anymore. The people who are they shine the brightest on something like a variety show, and that's because they have like real live present in the moment talent. They don't need editing. They don't need like a lot of pre-production and special effects and stuff like that. Like they're just bright, shining people. So she'll be missed.
Oh, lovely. Joestar.
I would say that people like Carol Channing, who can kind of do it all, like Spencer was saying, aren't quite as appreciated now, just because there aren't those outlets anymore. I think the live musicals that NBC does now are kind of as close as we get, or like the Wayne Brady show at like 2 p.m, maybe. But yeah, I mean, she could sing, she could dance, she could hold her own with any late night host of her day. I think that was one of the cool things about watching Carol Channing, when no matter who you paired her with, these icons of late night and entertainment, and she just more than held her own. Sometimes you would just watch her carry Johnny through segments, and it was just really, really cool to watch.
I think it's interesting because there's probably actors today who can do it all. They just don't so much get the opportunity. Like if you think of Neil Patrick Harris, he's probably a little bit that guy he can sing, he can dance, he obviously can do live theater. We just don't have the opportunity, to your point, for them to show off so much anymore. Or even Hugh Jackman is kind of that guy.
Channing Tatum.
I mean, Hugh Jackman's having to self-finance his own
dance.
tour to do it.
He can dance. He can't really sing, can he?
2 out of 3.
Yeah, I mean,
2 out of
he's
3 ain't bad.
handsome. Does that up the
Handsome,
ante?
funny, can dance.
Yeah. He's especially funny in the dance. I think he knows how to use the dance comedically. Rare skill.
Yep. Well, Jackman, to your point, had to self-finance his own I Do Everything tour just to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Wow.
He's on, I think it's on, I don't know if it's just a tour or if it's actually on Broadway, but yeah, it's literally the Hugh Jackman show, where he wears whatever top hats he wants because he's a big guy, he's a big kid, and sings and dances and acts.
Sounds fun.
Yeah, well, you know what? Thanks to Wolverine, we get top hats. So I think that's as good a place as any. Oh, we have things for you to watch.
Yeah.
You can watch the top 10 movies of the years. This is definitively, ladies and gentlemen. There's no,
It's objective.
it is objectively true.
We melted them all down
How
and
do you guys
measured
define
measured their
objectivity?
elements.
We did the math, and it's available for you on YouTube's. Dan and I have crunched all the numbers. I should get us out of here. You
Eat
should
your
watch
jam.
that.
Jam tomorrow,
I'm
jam
gonna go
yesterday.
eat my jam.
Never ever jam today.
You eat our jam.
Happy Lunch Tuesday.
God damn it, JT!